Welcome to Books and Other Things, where two best friends with seemingly different views discuss books and other things.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the podcast. As you must have heard from the intro, today I myself, Abhijit Maida, and my co-host Kishore Manikar, we are going to review the book 1984 by George Orwell. And before we get into the discussion, I would just like to say that the initial part of this discussion will be spoiler free, and after a point we'll give a heads up, after which we'll discuss the entire story, which might contain spoilers. But before jumping in, Kishore, how are you, man?
Hi, Abhijit. Thank you so much for doing this with me. So, I'm really excited that you decided for the green light for this project.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
let's hope this will be a lot of fun, a lot of things to discover, discuss, a bit of things that we never knew about the book, about the author, and how the book is relevant in our ever-changing times of today.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, so I know that you read this book for the second time. I read this book for the first time this week. So, for someone who reread it, how was your experience?
Well, for someone who read the book for when I read the book for the first time, it was a difficult one, and going through it again, it was no simple task. It was a challenging one.
So there was one criticism that I read online. I'll get to it in a bit. But before that, I'll just give a brief background of this book so that if someone doesn't know about it at all, they can understand what we are saying.
Yeah,
So this book is called 1984, written by a guy called George Orwell. And unlike the title, this book was actually written in 1949.
true.
Uh,
Yeah,
and, and and it's a genre called it's a genre called dystopian fiction, where where George Orwell had a vision of the future, but it was not that great. And so the whole story revolves around a guy called Winston, in a place called Oceania. And in the way things work in Oceania is there is a party called the party, and there is a supreme leader called Big Brother, and no one has seen Big Brother. No one has. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you've seen Big Boss, you will know what we are talking about. So no one has seen Big Boss. You only hear the people living inside only hear his voice, and that is something what is was inspired by this book. So this story actually takes you through Winston's. From the moment Winston starts to realize that there are a lot of there are things called you can't do, called thought crime.
yes,
There is their own they have their own language called newspeak. And I mean, in between a book there comes a point where one person says that the whole the whole funda of newspeak is to reduce the number of words in this language, so
exactly.
that you don't think of any other thing apart from which the party wants you to think.
Yeah. Well,
uh, yeah,
well,
yeah, Kishore, you want to add?
adding a few points. I never knew that Eric Arthur Blair, the original name of uh, the author, he chose an pen name actually, George Orwell. So Eric
Oh, I
Arthur Blair's pen name is George Orwell, and he was born in Motihar in Bengal in 1903. So
Oh,
that's a
nice.
right. So he was born in Bengal before partition that happened in 1905, and he moved to England with his mother, and he did serve in the army. There are a lot of places where the book appeals to us, where we are not allowed to do certain things, and how things have grown out, and how there is constant surveillance that's going on. That's how we have the word Big Brother getting into our cultural lingo, referring to Google and Facebook to ever hearing presence of what we speak and how they control the information using their algorithms.
So Kishore, what if you had like 3 to 4 takeaways from this book, which would be the first one? You want me to start?
Sure, please.
I
Yeah,
have
please do.
so the first takeaway I had from this book was the first line itself, and I'll just read it out for if someone has not read this book. So the first line said, "It was a bright cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13." And just this sentence will set up this book for you. Okay, this is the kind of book you are going to read. It was a bright cold day in April. April is the summer season.
Yeah,
You don't get cold days, and a bright cold day, which is again an anomaly, and the clocks were striking 13.
yeah. The fourth
So
one.
that was, yeah, I mean, so that was the author just like, I think this is one of the best first lines in a book, after maybe A Tale of Two Cities. So yeah, that was the initial understanding I got from this, from at least the first chapter.
Yeah. Well, to elaborate on the book, it's divided in three parts. So the first part will dabble with how our guy Winston Smith goes around with his work and how his life is. He describes his life around his apartment, Victory Mansions, and the department that he works in. Uh, he works in the records department that is under the Ministry of what is the ministry? Ministry of
You
Truth.
want to
Yeah,
you want to talk about the four ministries?
yeah, man. I mean, they are quite ironic in their naming itself, and they do reflect the political following or political nature of the party, the philosophical teachings more so to say, a double thing. So, do you want to name the four ministries for me?
Yeah. So the first ministry is called Ministry of Truth,
Yeah,
which is concerned with news, entertainment, education, and fine arts. The second is the Ministry of Peace, which concerns itself with war.
yeah,
The Ministry of Love, which maintains law and order, and the Ministry of Plenty, which was responsible for economic affairs.
yeah,
And also, I'd like to point out the slogan of the party, which is very ironic in itself. To again mention what you said about the double thing,
yeah.
which said, "War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength."
Yeah. And I don't know if we could go talk, if we could jump from one part to other, but there is a point in the book where Winston gets to know that there is a brotherhood that exists and he wants to destroy the party. And that brotherhood is led by Emmanuel Goldstein,
Yes, yes.
the primary dictator and the primary traitor of the party itself. There is one more part where he gets to know about the existence of a book, simply referred as the book, uh,
The book, yeah.
which was naturally written by Emmanuel Goldstein. And in that, um when we do have,
Ajay, you want to take it for later, because
yeah,
people might get some spoilers here.
yeah, sure, yeah, all right,
Cool, cool. So I had one point when I was mentioning that when I was saying the slogan of the party, which is "War is strength, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength."
yeah,
And there is a great share by Javed Akhtar. So it was a long share, but in between there were two lines which said कि शहर के हकीम का ये फरमान है, कैद में कहलाएंगे आजाद साहब. And which was pretty similar to like just from the wordings, it was pretty similar to freedom is slavery.
yeah,
कि शहर के हकीम का फरमान है कि, I mean, those who are कि कैद में कहलाएंगे आजाद साहब.
mm,
They won't be free, they will be called free.
yeah,
just how important words and thoughts are in a society. Like if you start calling prisoners as free people, I mean, like suddenly the whole meaning of prison changes.
Exactly.
Even though all the environment and all the surroundings are still the same. And I think this was one of the initial books that told the world about the power of words.
Yeah.
That if you control the language, you control the thoughts, and if you control the thoughts, you control the person.
Well, in a greater sense, the dictators of the previous century, 20th century, it has inspirations from their deeds as well. The book does points out clearly how how the world is divided into hierarchies. It has, and how people subscribe more easily to a hierarchical structure, and
Hmm.
in doing so, Winston in one passage, not telling exactly what he said, he does go through how the party's philosophical and political nature came into being, and how they have perfected the nature to control the very thought of man that he can ever perceive in any space or at any time. Talking about the book itself, they will try to dive more deeper into this, into the very particulars of the book for people who might not want to read this. I from my side, I want to say this, that this book is a bit depressing to read, and for the second time, it was a harrowing experience for me.
Dude, this last week was so difficult. I mean, we had this audacious goal of reading. So just to give the listeners some context, we decided to record this podcast on I think Tuesday, and so we had like 3 or 4 days to go through this entire book. And then I mean, and we both work full time in our job, so that was already there. And and then reading this book at night. So at night I tend to read feel good novels, and I don't like to think about dystopia and shit when going to sleep. But yeah, this week was very different that way as well, because of this
And
book.
we don't even know why we settled for this book. The primary reason being that this is one of the 100 must-reads book according to a Times article, and this was the first books that we ever found common ground on because of the privacy concern that arise due to the growing dominance of Google in the search internet. So
Yeah.
that's how we converged on this book. Right.
Yeah.
Honestly, but we'll try our best to make sure that we do go into the best part that we liked about the book, and give you the gist of the story. If we do succeed in pro- um, giving rise to an interest of some kind in you, I would definitely suggest the listeners to go check out the book, uh, and take your time with it, because this is one hell of a book in itself. Given the life of privilege that we live in, we can't imagine our time. Okay, there is one thing that I want to mention. In a particular point in the novel, the protagonist gets to know, says that a good book never tells you something that you do not know. So there was it. He finds relevance to this thought when he is reading a particular book, and I do not know mm, how this how this relates to all of us, but I do agree with with him, with Winston, for a moment, because that's how a good book works. It systematically structures the data that you have into a meaningful tool that you can use to obtain a means, to reach an end.
Hmm. So what did you make of that quote? Do you think that quote has something to do with
Uh,
this book
a
for
large
you?
part of the book I was able to refer to it because of its political context.
And before we move to spoilers part, I wanted to discuss one thing about the writing of this book. And what did you make of it? Like, you read a lot of novels, so what did you make of the writing of this book? I also have some thoughts, but if you
Well,
want to
I
go
have
first.
not read a lot of books per se, but my main interest has been dystopian fiction till now. And I have learned that the writing is not that okay.
Okay, I'll go to it. So there was one particular paragraph that I really liked. Uh, and I won't go into the specifics. I'll just tell you what the paragraph was. He was falling backwards into an enormous depth, away from the rats. He was still strapped in the chair, but he had fallen through the floor, through the walls of the building, through the earth, through the ocean, through the atmosphere, into outer space, into the gulf between the stars, but always away, away, away from the rats. And like I mentioned this paragraph because when I read this one, I could imagine that happening. Someone just falling through all the layers of earth and just dropping into space. And that was so in terms of writing, I mean, this was George Orwell's last book, I think so, uh, out of his 9 books. And I mean it's a very fitting conclusion to all of his writings because it just came out. So till the end you won't be able to uh, I mean there will be some uh, confusions in your mind as to what will be the eventual outcome. So that I think that way the book was written very
Yeah,
well.
for my takeaway, I won't be able to comment much on the writing, but be, it would be less to say that adulate his uh, derivations and deductions from the history of the world and how he was able to give structure to it in this particular dystopian future. Uh, how do you say this? It's more of a social commentary on the structure of society and how it evolved and how people do whatever they can to
Right.
cling to it. Mostly the ones who are well off.
And I think like from this point, it's safe to say that we can now move into the spoiler zone because I also have some. I also
Yeah.
have some thoughts on what you said. But do you have anything to say before we move to the
Before we
spoiler
go
part?
to the spoiler part, I think the relevance of this dystopian future is spilling into our present. And if we do not be responsible with our decisions on how to use technology or how to use our own thoughts and how to use our own ideologies to define what is right and what is wrong, our civilization might be doomed. So we might get lost. We might uh, damage our culture to a point where we can't go back. So that's a very scary thought when you read this. And yeah, that's all I have to say about this because the more we tend to
Okay.
discuss, the more gloomy we can get about discussing this this book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but okay. So now that we are in the spoiler sec part, uh, the thing you mentioned
Hmm.
recently, Abhi, jo bola, about how right now is the worst time and things like that. To be honest, uh, like there have been many criticisms of, I mean, not of the book, but of the people who tend to overanalyze the book. And people have said that, so the criticism say that every generation thinks this is 1984. Like since 1949, every generation thinks that 1984 is right now
I,
happening. But every generation also feels that the past was pretty safe. Like now we are in
okay.
1984. So there is this thing like people who want to wield power over and who want to know each and every details of people of the people they are ruling over. That has been happening since years, like years. I mean, centuries, like when kings were there, they used to, sort of, they used to have those insiders who used to take all the gossips from the streets and then tell it to the king so that he's aware of what is happening. Or uh, and at that time, that was a total dictatorship. Now you legit had a king who used to like whatever he says is the command of
Yeah.
the is the law of the land.
Uh,
So so that there was there's a lot that people say ki, we do tend to overanalyze this book because like these things have been going on. It's not like it has just started right now and we are on the verge of downfall or anything.
um, yeah, what you mentioned is true,
Yeah.
but these arguments or these thoughts that we are getting, we do have good reasons to believe that we are getting, we are getting a big brotherly presence here in this world because of how the business models have been set up, and the free products that is being
Hmm.
distributed to us. So as the common adage goes, if the product is free, you are the product. In doing so, I had
Yeah.
multiple instances where I had a brief chance to use Instagram, and I was getting ads of things I have never even searched or have looked up on Instagram. So we have anecdotal evidence
Huh.
from people around the world of how these things are popping up here and there, and moreover, we do know about the evolution of the personalized bubble that has been created. You know, most tech firms, market this strategy as a personalized feed. Like, you get things that are relevant to you. In doing so, they are
Yeah. Yeah.
gathering data on what you care about, and this particular strategy
Hmm.
is a very toned down approach, a very toned down approach that you can identify if you are really if you do really give attention to how they are doing it, and
Huh.
the story in Big Brother is a more aggressive strategy where you are not alone, even when even when you eat, you work, when you sleep. It's only when you turn off the light that the Big Brother can't see you, even then. So
Yeah. 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 So there were some parts. So this part, even I agree that there are thought bubbles, and not just because of tech companies. I think now we have um, like it has become our habit to only seek out info that suits our perspective. So even in terms of news channels or newspapers, like we won't watch news channels even though there is no bubble there. Like you can anyway anytime you can switch the channel if you want. But still we won't watch the news channels that don't suit
yes,
to our line of thinking. And that is not something that tech companies are doing. And yet, like that is just
I
our
I do
innate
I
human
do
thing
agree
now.
with that.
Like we
We do have the choice, but the 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 part where we are failing is we do not change that channel. We do not switch off that TV. We do not go to another news article, and we do not turn off our notification for that particular country. So, in the bigger question that I think we need to ask: have we failed as being humans? Have we failed as developing a temper towards asking questions, listening, listening to others? And the big thing that in a recent, I think a couple of years back, there was a strain. There was what do you say? A streak of awards being returned because the India that as we knew was growing less tolerant. So, in doing so, we have to address these questions because they will snowball into something big they do go undermined. So, if we have
yeah.
failed to answer these questions, is this because of the political dispensation, or is this because of our lack of proper education of the big issues that that plague our country as a whole or as a world? Uh, well, after saying this, we can take this conversation wherever we want to. We can talk about the capitalists and the growing inequality in the world. Uh, Maybe we can talk about the growing hunger for power by the government.
I mean, we can take it anywhere, but right now we'll stick to the book. Let's keep that as a
Yeah.
separate discussion for some other
Well,
time. I mean, if you just want to take people through the story
yeah.
of, now that we are into the spoiler zone, uh, like if you want to just take them through the
Well,
overall, like the
Abhijit, I
bare
think
bone story.
I would like you to start on this and also add the part which you thought was the worst thing that a party ever did.
Oh, okay, okay. What was
Yes.
the worst thing according to me the party ever did? Okay, okay. ठीक है, I'll just give the brief overview of the book. So essentially, the book tracks the story of Winston, as we said, and he starts to find anomalies in the system. Uh, because there's one particular evidence that comes pretty early in the book where so all the newspapers, leaflets everywhere say that the
Hmm.
Oceania where he lives, Oceania is in war with Eurasia. But he pretty clearly remembers that 4 years back, Oceania was on war with East Asia, not Eurasia. But now the leaflets are saying that Oceania has been, since time eternal, it has been at war with Eurasia. And that is the first, sort of glitch in the matrix that he, notices. uh, uh, that okay, like I either my memory is wrong or I am like everyone is being served lies. And also there is one other thing that he works in the Ministry of Truth, which ironically his job is to alter facts every day. So for example, if the party today says that uh, we have had the highest ever production of shoes ever. So now Winston's job is to make sure to change the past. So to reduce the number of shoes produced in the last entire like till now, so that current
Hmm.
year's shoe production comes out at the top. And just to give you an idea, all of these are just numbers. Like no one knows how many actual shoes have been produced. All of it are numbers. No one can put their finger and say that these were the total number of shoes that were produced before and produced now. So there is no fact checking there. So uh, from here we go to a point where Winston notices a girl and a guy called O'Brien, and the girl is called Julia, and they both in the first time he sees, both of them seem pretty much aligned to the party. But he notices that O'Brien has slight, he thinks that O'Brien is a guy who might be against the party, just like himself, just like Winston. And so he thinks that O'Brien will understand his thoughts, and that is what guy takes him throughout the book. uh, but he has pretty strong suspicion that Julia is pretty much a person of the party. She works with the thought police, and she's like uh, uh, very ingrained with the values of the party. But slowly in chapter 2 we understand that Julia is actually not such, and in fact she is also against the party, against the values of the party. And slowly Winston and Julia start to have a romantic relationship. They get pretty serious about each other, and they also rent out, they constantly break the rules, and they go and meet each other and into faraway lands that there is no telescreen or there is no one to record uh, their conversations. They also rent a house. They also rent a room somewhere so that they
Yeah.
can, where there is no telescreen. Uh, So that keeps happening in the second chapter. And in the end of second chapter, O'Brien somehow meets Winston
Mhm.
and asks him to come visit him. And that is when shit starts to turn great. So now we know that Winston, O'Brien, and Julia, all three are against the party. And O'Brien says that he's part of Brotherhood, and in real there is someone called Goldstein who is planning to upturn the party and Big Brother. And so all of them start to and then O'Brien gives Winston and Julia a book called The Book, and where where Goldstein has written all the manifesto and all the steps that they
Yeah.
have to take to upturn the government there. The part three deals with the reality, which is exactly opposite to what Winston had, which is exactly opposite to what was in the first chapter. In first chapter, Winston thinks Julia is a traitor and O'Brien is a is someone who hates the party. In chapter three, we understand it's the opposite. Julia is the one who hates the party, and O'Brien is the one in chapter three we get to know that um, uh, the thought police comes and captures both Julia and Winston, and they are taken to a place where O'Brien, and now both of them are separated. O'Brien then mentally tortures
Hmm.
Winston and changes his mind. Like, so that is one thing O'Brien keeps repeating, that we don't want to
Yep.
kill our enemies, we want to change them, so that even if they die, like there is not even a single thought in their mind that what the party is doing is wrong. So they don't kill till the time the prisoners or the people who have committed the crime change themselves internally. So that is something they are pretty much anal about. And apart from that,
The,
and yeah, I mean the end is end.
well,
You want to
there
tell
is
what happens in the end?
pretty. I think the end is a pretty predictable one, given it's a dystopian novel. So we do know, but adding to what my dear colleague has mentioned, I do want to add a very few details here and there, sprinkle over there. So Winston gets victory secrets, victory gin, lives in victory mansions, and that is for the first part. And he was married to someone named Catherine a few years ago, but they separated. And and there are things like 2 minutes hate that everyone must participate on a daily basis. And this guy
Yeah,
hate week, yes. And
hate week. Yeah,
whenever whenever a person was he was caught by the thought police, he was said to be vaporized. And vaporized. And it's quite interesting that Winston had to handle a few references to some people who were vaporized, and they would become unpersoned, and they would cease to exist in the past, and any references to them would have to be obliterated. And uh, then since we are in the spoiler section, I think I am free to say that the party follows a structure where a structure of double thing, where they can they have the power to erase the past, and they forget the very act of erasure as well. In doing in doing so, they are able to have
yeah, yeah.
contradicting thoughts at the same time. And I think
Hmm.
there are a few parts in the story that do appeal. I think it will appeal to a large section of the population, no matter where you reside. About uh, how do you say this? Um, about humans' thirst to belong and to have freedom of thought. And there is this particular quote in the novel. wherein Winston writes in his diary, freedom is to say 2 plus 2 makes 4. You did not mention the worst thing
Yeah, I
that
just
the party did.
ha yeah, yeah. So
Yes.
just one thing, like you said, the end was pretty predictable. But for me, to be honest, the end wo in this entire book, the whole thing is that just by saying that, do something to a person, it doesn't mean you cheated on that person, or you were a traitor. But when you actually feel from the inside, that is when you have changed. And there is this recurring theme that where Julia and Winston both say to each other that, like, I will come clean on all the things. Like, I will say that both of us committed crimes, and both of us committed thought crimes. But from the inside, I will always know that, I mean, I will always love you. Like,
Yeah.
that will always be there. That won't change. Both of them say that. But in the end, after all the punishments and after all the things, they meet each other again, and they are not able to even meet their eyes. And both of them say that, hey, I cheated on you. And when they say I cheated on you,
Yeah.
it was they cheated with their heart. Like, both of them asked O'Brien to like torture the other person. Like, Julia asked to torture Winston, and Winston asked to torture Julia. And that was when the party, or the that whole system, won against both of them. Like, they converted even the two of the most rigid haters of the party. And so that was not something I was expecting. And even apart from that, the last
Yeah.
line of that book, where
It's,
he
I love
he
you.
died loving Big Brother, or something like that, is the last
Yeah.
line. And that, I love you, Big Brother. And that is that is, even that I was not expecting, because he does foreshadow his death, where he says that even though a bullet might hit my head,
Big
but
brother.
my thought will always say that I hate Big Brother, and so
I
there
think
will be a free thought in
I'm
the end after
I'm
my death.
sorry that I'm
But
cutting
when
you off.
he
But I think the love that
no,
arises for Big Brother is because he's finally being freed of all this perpetual what do you call it? This perpetual case that he has been put into without his own will, that has been how do you imposed on him. Uh, I,
no, but
I think that is the
yeah,
reason why he
yeah,
says "I love
gone
you,
through it.
Big Brother" at the end, not during or after he has been converted. He might love Big Brother, but he says it out
No,
loud
but
only when he is about to die.
no, but that is the thing. He doesn't say it out loud. He only thinks. He doesn't say that out loud. I love you, Big Brother. That is the whole thing in this
Mm.
book, na, that your thoughts are what guide you. You can say anything you want, but what are your thoughts? And his thoughts change at the end. And that is, marks the circle, that, okay, like, this, even Winston can be converted. And in fact, that is conversion, na, where you don't even remember that you used to follow anything else in the past. This is what was always there. And if there was any other thought that was present in your mind, it was double
Yeah.
think. Like, it was, I mean, you just rubbish it. That, no, that never existed. But in terms of book, dude, chapter two was the best and the worst for me. Well, I really enjoyed the romance between, and the arc of Julia and Winston, like how Winston starts is initially hating Julia, then they have that infatuation, then they fall in love, and then the whole
Uh,
uh, how they cheat on each other. But I really like that part. But also the second chapter is also the one that I hate, because it had that whole the book wala thing. Like, it was a drag, that sub chapter. And in the end, we get to know that
I
that
think
book
I
was
would
useless.
completely
Like,
disagree. It's
I
not
mean,
useless. I think the very irony of that book is that if you it the chapter one. it's sad that I think Emmanuel Goldstein himself was the guy who wrote that book. He himself was the guy who created the party, but the party decided that Emmanuel Goldstein was not fit to lead the party and take it to, uh, to make sure that the party ruled forever. So I
नहीं, but
he did write that book.
but Emmanuel Goldstein didn't write that book, ना?
अरे नहीं भाई, उसने लिखा था.
नहीं, हाँ, O'Brien wrote that book. हाँ, so in between the book, he like in the third chapter when he's torturing Winston, Winston talks about the book and
And
O'Brien
he
is like,
helped
I
him
know
write the
because
book as
I
well. वो
have
भी था.
written the book.
ऐसा है क्योंकि देख तो देख जब वो चैप्टर 1 पढ़ता है ना तो क्या लिखा होता है, चैप्टर 1 और चैप्टर 3 पढ़ता है ना, तो वो उसमें बोलता है कि लाइक वॉर इज पीस, वो समझाता है क्यों वॉर इज पीस, और इग्नोरेंस इज स्ट्रेंथ क्यों है, वो समझाता है, लाइक दैट गाय एक्सप्लेन्स व्हाई. सो ओब्रायन माइट हैव डेफिनेटली नॉट रिटन द बुक, बट इट वुड हैव बीन रिटन बाय, लाइक मेरे को क्या लग रहा है, देयर वाज नो बिग ब्रदर, बिग ब्रदर नाम की कोई चीज ही नहीं है. सो द Goldstein guy was there.
But
I
there was
think he
also the
was
Goldstein.
okay. That's what I think. कि Goldstein था, and he
नहीं,
wrote that book, and he realized the potential of the harm that this book could have done, and how the party revolution could change. So and then they turned him out.
no, but from what I got of this book is that the party itself has created Goldstein. You know how they said that maybe
Mhm.
there might be a scene that there is actually no war happening. The party itself is bombing its own people so that they stay under their
Yeah,
control, that they are always terrified. And that is also something I feel like that is like there is no brotherhood, there is no Goldstein. All of it is created by the party so as to give a common enemy to all the people, that this is the person you need to hate. And if you have any anger, if you have any
mm.
negative feelings,
uh,
pour them out on
but
this
I do
person.
think see
So
well the way I think is that, see, the way the revolution was begun, the way the party overtook, and the way how party created a big brother figure. So if you read so if the very title of the book that was given to Winston Smith by O'Brien, it says the theory of oligarchical collectivism. So so that is the reason why I think that book was written by an individual to lead a party, and the party realized that there are elements that we could use to perpetuate the rule of the party without the author himself, and the author realizing the mistake that he has done. Maybe he had a Frankenstein moment, and realizing that he was scared and he wanted to undo what he had done, and in doing so, the party achieved two goals. One, creating a central figure of hate, and also realized that they needed a central figure to do the opposite, that is to love. And that was the main objective, to create a big brother. So here they had two conflicting personalities, one to hate and one to die for. So that is how I think the party realized that we would have a different approach on how we want to rule forever, and to have grip on power in perpetuity. See, I
so
think
you
Big
don't
Brother
think
does
that
not
Big
exist,
Brother
but
exists,
the
right?
author, the I suppose it's Emmanuel Goldstein, he did exist, but he was overthrown by the party itself.
Okay, I think that is where we differ. Like I don't like even I feel that Big Brother doesn't exist. In fact, I think O'Brien even confirms that Big Brother won't ever die because Big Brother is not a person. I feel like Big Brother is like a
I
is a way of
I do
thinking,
agree with
and
the Big Brother
that will
part, but
never
not
die.
on
So
the
that I
Emmanuel
agree with.
Goldstein.
What I My theory is that
Okay.
in this book there are a lot of times when they mention the purge. that in the Great Purge, like a purge that happened in the 1950s or 60s, and that is when what I feel is that is when what Winston went at the end went through at the end, where his thoughts were removed, where he was shown how many fingers are there, and he eventually ended up saying yes, five, there are five fingers, 2 plus 2 is 5. And what the party did to him, then I feel like the party did to all the citizens in the Great Purge that happened in the 1950s, like in the end of 1950s. And that is when they made two characters, one to love, which is Big Brother, and one to hate, that is Goldstein. Like there is no Goldstein, there is no Big Brother, it's all run by a group of people. And that is why O'Brien says that, in
Yeah.
fact, he reverses that, the original thing is freedom is slavery, but slavery is freedom, because the individual can die.
Mm.
Someone will just come and kill you, like individuals die. But if you are a group
Yeah.
and your thinking process continues, like someone else will take it forward. And that is why if you are a slave, like if you are a group who is, running under a set of rules, you
I
are actually
think this will
free.
be a
Like you won't
constant
ever
tug of
die.
war between individualism and collectivism. And I think it will be on the lines of war is
Uh,
peace, where in Doublethink it says that war is peace, but nobody knows if the war is happening or not. So this constant tug will I think it will go on for eternity until we become a classic civilization.
so I think we are almost like 1 hour past. So you have
Uh,
any any
okay, so I
any
will tell.
final thoughts or
I
anything you
think
want to say?
I only want to mention the part where the worst thing that the party did. I think and okay,
Okay,
the
yeah,
worst
please,
thing
please
that the
keep going.
party did was to take the pleasure out of sex. Succeed हो गया था, like it succeeded in taking the pleasure out of sex and all the small things in life.
Okay. Any last thoughts you have apart from this? Or how was your general experience in reading this book? Like not the content of this book,
I
but
do
the
not
experience
think we
of
need
reading a
more
book in
dystopian
before
novels
days. How was that?
to give a a warning sign. I think we need more
Exactly.
uh, um, yeah, more realistic ones that
Utopia.
that are
Realistic
more
maybe.
that act as a guiding hand to uh, to to let us to correct our path on where we are going as a species or more,
Okay.
as mankind. So there are a lot of issues that plague us that
Yeah.
might even be from what plastic pollution to globalization or to right-wing extremism, you name it. We have a number of issues, but it's a matter of time that we will realize and recognize that we need to change the way we look at the world and change the way we choose how we
Hmm.
decide to achieve a end. So it goes without saying the means and the end play an equally important role on how and where we want to get. The the final thing that I would add from my side is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
1984 is one hell of a read, and if you think you should give it a miss, you might be wrong.
Nice. So for me, the whole, I mean, coming to the end of that book, I always thought that Winston will, in his heart, he will stay true to what he originally thought. But when that last line came, and I was like, I mean, even they managed to convert this guy, then I mean, then anything is possible. So that was a point uh, that it was a great learning for me, that anyone can be, anyone's mind can be changed if you torture them enough, uh, if you put them under enough pressure. So that was one thing that I took away from this. Uh, Apart from that, in terms of reading this book, like I mean, as I said, like reading a book in 3 days, uh, a novel, and this is not a small, and this is a book that I've tried to read it since almost 3 4 years. So that was a good experience to, finish this book in under 3-4 days.
Uh,
Uh, yeah,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. Which
ठीक है,
I
so
do
here the
want to
discussion ends.
ask you only
And
one
yeah,
question.
you want to say something?
So where do you find yourself in the high, the middle, or the low?
Oh, dude, I mean, there was a Puneet Panya stand-up that happened. Like, he released a video recently, and he said that, I mean, people just want to be called the middle class.
I honestly
Like,
do
I mean,
not
what do
know
you think? You'll fall
right
in the
now
middle only, right?
my space in that hierarchy, that pyramid of high, low, and middle. But but certainly it's something that everyone needs to ask themselves. Like, where do they stand? Where do they want to be? And the most important question is, do we really need such hierarchy, or is there an alternative?
I mean, but he does mention about this, now that if there is no hierarchy, then it, I mean, then it will happen that everyone has all the basic needs and everyone is same, which will then run against the human evolution thing, now, where you need to have a leader to guide. Otherwise, everyone will have differing opinions, and you won't reach anywhere. And if you have a leader, now automatically you start to get a hierarchy.
Yeah, we do have.
So, I mean,
There is a
we can
lot of
discuss
content
sometime
to
else.
discuss,
But
debate, and uh,
yeah, I mean,
we-
this is that kind of book that you'll never stop. And I mean, it is like politics, where how much you debate, at the end you won't.
we'll
I mean,
have,
either you
we'll
won't
just
change
end,
your. I mean, either topics won't end,
we'll
or
just agree to
like
disagree, and
it
because
will
let's
start
go
to
on for
run around
20.
in circles. But so here the discussion ends. And
Well, I
for
this
this
read
week's
a
book,
few
so do you have
dystopian
anything in mind?
novels. So, do you want to continue the dystopian streak, or do you want to break this? Because this three-part novel is in itself a marathon. So, if you, I think we could do Dune, or maybe Neuromancer. I'm only saying that because I have that on my shelf right now. You please feel free to tell me. Uh,
I mean, do you
different
want to
genre.
go to like a separate, क्या बोल sorry?
Not boring.
Like,
It will be,
otherwise it might get
cumbersome.
boring
It
for
will be a
us
very
also.
difficult task to complete. Okay.
19 like there's a non-fiction book called The Righteous Mind. And the subtitle of that book is Why Good People Are Divided by Politics
Okay.
and Religion, by a guy called Jonathan Haidt. And uh, I mean, that book. Uh, I read reviews of that book where they've said that it is so the author does a pretty good job of dividing, like when we, like, there are so
Oh,
many people,
nice.
I
Okay.
agree on almost everything with them apart from their political leaning.
Yeah.
And I mean, so many times it happens now that there might be like some film stars or cricket or like sports people who we look up to, we admire, or
Yeah.
businessmen. But when it comes to the political leanings, they're like, why is he doing like this? So he tried to say ki, why do people do that? And but it's also slightly, so people have
Quite.
written in the reviews that the author is slightly right leaning. So there is that thing that comes, but it's a
Understood.
nice
Yeah.
way to understand the other spectrum as well, like, you know but I mean, I don't think you should read it now, because I think, I mean, it's too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
This book has
We
the
do. We
1984
do need
was
some time to
a lot of politics.
uh,
3 days. I mean, a lot
rejuvenate
of.
our spirit.
You want
So yeah,
to you want to
let's do one
read
thing. We
a
could,
non-fiction book?
do the suggestion of the book alternately. Like, you go on with one this week. Yeah. So the next week I would suggest.
Oh, yeah, we can do that. So
No,
19,
I think
nine,
1984 we agreed
1984
because
I
that was the
suggested.
common
So
book that
you
we
want
started with.
to, you go.
So so that's a score for both of us. So you can start this week. So then the
Yeah, yeah,
next week
yeah.
I will
Makes sense.
give a name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Exactly.
I'm giving a book that let's try to go ahead with the books that both of us have not read, so that it's a good avenue for both of us to discover things. So this week, I know that you are also running, and I am also, I've also gotten in the habit of running. So this week, the book that I feel we should read
Okay,
is
done.
The Incomplete Book of Running by Peter Sagal. And Peter Sagal is I mean, just to give you some context, he's the author of, so he runs a very popular podcast called Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. And he's also a columnist for Runner's World. And it's, I mean, he was a normal guy like us, and he, uh, sort of how running changed his life, how he transformed, how when he transformed his
So
running,
why
he
does it
transformed his
seem
life.
similar, like
So even
what
I have
happens
not
in
read it,
Forrest
so
Gump?
let's give it a shot.
So Jenny leaves him and he starts running all over the United States of America, looking forward to that trip.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Let's see.
Yeah,
Cool.
done.
Chalo, The Incomplete Book of Running by Peter Sagal.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Done.
Yeah.
Chalo, thank you. Thanks, Kishore. Bye bye.